learners, I welcome you to yet another video lecture of the course on Gender and the Media. And this particular video lecture has been named as Media Audience. In this particular unit or lesson, we will try to understand the role of the audience, the role that they play in the media process of production, distribution, and exhibition. We will also try to understand the relationship that the audience has with the institutions. We will try to look at the audience theories and see what the different terminologies are. Audience is a very important part of the communication process. By media audience, we mean the recipients of the mass media messages. For all kinds of media, there is a specific audience. For newspaper, for television, for radio, film, all these kind of media, they have their target consumers who act as their audiences. So these are the people who are large, diversified, heterogeneous, and often anonymous. They are geographically scattered. So these people, these audiences, are a mixture of different age, gender, profession, education, and social class. So they are often strangers to one another. So audience is the ultimate source of mass media revenue. If there is no audience to purchase movie tickets or different audiovisual recordings, or there are no people to subscribe to newspapers or magazines or to attend to radio and television programs, just imagine. So there will be, without audience, there will be no mass media. And no mass media could be able to stay in business without the help of the audience. Hence, now you can understand how the audience is a very integral part of the media or the mass media. The messages of television, newspaper, film, etc., they are determined according to the nature and behavior of the target audience. The mass media tailor or frame their messages keeping in view the behavior or the nature of their target audience. So it is very important to understand the characteristics and to understand the role that audiences play in the media process of production, distribution, and exhibition. If we look at the definition of mass media, we can say that mass media or audience is defined as the assembled spectators or listeners at an event or a formal interview with a person in authority. Okay? An individual or collective group of people who read or consume any media text can be called as audience. For example, radio listeners, television viewers, newspaper and magazine readers, etc. So without audience, there would be no media. One commonly thinks of an audience as a collection of people experiencing some form of media as a group. So the term audience carries with it a cultural social connotation that are specific to a particular time or place. So being a part of an audience indicates that one is not involved in the production of the media event, but instead they are related to the or involved in the consumer, recipient, negotiator of information. So this has changed with the coming of the new technologies and coming of so-called new media. And what happens now is that the internet encourages a more active audience, as we all of us have experienced. Newer media forms based on internet, they facilitate a more fluid exchange of information, and we can see that gradually the line between the consumer or producer of messages are blurring. Right? A producer can be the consumer can also be the producer of a particular message. However, where there are no media events, there would be no consumer, or conversely, without consumers, there would be no media. So the development of this concept of audience and the evolution of different forms of media are intertwined. Okay? Therefore, the growth of media audiences is related to the growth of media. The examination of audiences is a new field. So researchers have paid relatively little attention to audiences before the invention of television and radio. So in the early 20th century, Robert Snyder described how technological advances radically reformed the way audiences were conceived. New modern methods of communicating, entertaining, and conveying information produced different variations of the public. With the increasing popularity of film in the early 20th century and the rapid diffusion of radio in the 1920s and 1930s, the composition of public shifted dramatically. As the new media captured the public imagination, community-based groups faded further. Advertisers and politicians started to exploit the new communication technologies in order to influence buying and in order to influence voting decisions, while broadcasting developed and broadcasters developed new means to study their audiences. Scholars from various fields such as media studies, cultural studies, anthropology, psychology, consumer research, audience studies, they have begun to investigate, conduct investigations or researches in audiences. In the second half of the 20th century, we saw a significant growth in audience studies. The actual concept of audience started moving through the arc of passive sap to interactive player. It was arguably the 1990s which saw the most significant shift in thinking about the audience, with the widespread inclusion of the internet into everyday lives and culture and the explosion of talk shows and reality TV shows. Knowledge about audiences has become an increasingly important commodity for media producers. Broadcasters and advertisers spend a significant amount of time and money in order to attempt to learn about those who watch or listen or read media in different kinds of media forms. Audience measurement is a type of audience research that documents the size and composition of media audiences. It allows patterns of audience activity to be tracked over time, and it generates the type of data that permits comparison of audience behavior from one medium to another. An industry-based research service, audience measurement, it generates information that is essential to the operation of media industries. Information about audience size and composition is the basis on which programming and pricing decisions are made. So this connection between audience research and marketing has greatly influenced how media producers understand the public and design their products. So often the success and failure of a media product, for example, what is a media product? A television show, a movie, a radio program, etc. It is determined by the audience response, and so it follows the examination of the public as media consumers. Okay, because it has a direct impact on the kind of media that are developed. So often those producing media are advised to know your audience and tailor their products for a specific group having a specific taste or specific values. Now let us have a look at audiences and new media. In the 21st century, changes in technology could be seen, and they influenced the kinds of interactions that audiences have with media. Now more than ever before, individuals are able to make decisions about how they wish to engage with different media in different contexts. One might argue that the World Wide Web is a public location, and as such, when we log on, we become a part of an audience. However, not only we are the member of online audiences, they are separated spatially and temporally. It becomes nearly impossible to know the demographic information about those who are engaged with the content. Okay, so with the proliferation of the internet and the more evident, mediatization of nearly every aspect of our daily life, since we cannot do away with without the help of our the smartphone or the internet that we use the entire day. So the question that makes an audience has become even harder to pin down, to conceptualize. We have more agency, more power, more ways to contribute than ever before, and this has changed the way in which researchers understand audiences and the public in general. So the term audience can be looked at from various perspectives. In terms of the level of engagement, audiences can be broadly classified as active audience and passive audience. So researchers investigating the effect of media on audiences, they have considered the audience in two distinct ways. The earliest idea was that media mass audience is passive and inactive. The members of the audience are seen as couch potatoes, just sitting there consuming the media texts, particularly the commercial television programs. So it was thought at that time that this did not require the active use of the brain. The audience accepts and believes all the messages that are shown or given through the media or given in the media text, and they receive passively. Okay, so this is the passive audience model. An active audience is one that actively engages with the text. They do not simply accept every media message. They question what they see and develop their own interpretation of a media product based on their life experiences, their education, their family background, their cultural influences, etc. Okay? So bottom-up theories, they generally assume an active audience. Theories such as uses and gratification theory and postmodernist theory, they assume that audiences are active. Active audience theory argues that media audiences do not just receive information passively, they are actively involved. They are though often unconsciously, they are actively involved in making sense of their personal and social contexts. So decoding of a media text here is influenced by such things as family backgrounds, beliefs, values, culture, interest, education, and experiences. A passive audience is an audience that merely observes an event rather than actively responding to it. A passive audience does not actively engage with the media text. A passive audience is one that does not question the message that the media is sending and simply accepts the message in the way that the media outlet sends. Top-down theories of media, the influence, top-down theories of media influence tend to assume that audiences are passive. Theories such as the bullet theory, the hypodermic needle theory, or the agenda setting theory, they give an idea about the audiences being passive. So mass communication is very similar to other forms of communication. As we know so far, it involves people, messages, channels, noise, etc. However, it possesses a special characteristic or features in addition to the characteristic of general communication. The first being the large number of audiences. The most important characteristic of mass communication is that its audiences are relatively large. Audiences of mass communication may exceed millions after millions. They are heterogeneous. The audiences of mass communication are not only large in number but also heterogeneous and anonymous in nature. Its audiences may belong to different ages, different religions, different sections, different groups, and so on. The audiences of mass communication are scattered in a vast geographical area, even in the whole world. So its audiences are far away from the source of information. So many theories try to make sense of the question, what effects do media texts have on audiences? The media industry is highly competitive and all media texts are created with a target audience in mind. So if there isn't an audience for a media text, then it won't be successful, either in getting its message across or if it is a commercial media text, making money for the producers, right? So media producers use audience research and analyze to find out as much as possible about their target audience and use that research to ensure their production will appeal to them and would be successful. So when you are studying audiences, you'll find that there are a lot of different theories about why some television programs have a large audience and some television programs they do not have any audience, and why people buy certain kind of things and they are not attracted to certain other things. Okay, so these things are very important and they can be understood with the study of the audience theories. So there are also audience theories about effect that media has on the audience. So this question has interested people ever since the invention of the printing press, and it became possible to make hundreds of copies of a document, and a message could reach a mass audience. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a theory in psychology. It was proposed by Abraham Maslow in 1943. Maslow subsequently extended the idea to include his observations of humans' innate curiosity in his subsequent book, Motivation and Personality. So this hierarchy suggests that people are motivated to fulfill their basic needs after moving on to another, more advanced needs. While some of the existing schools of thought at the time, such as psychoanalysis and behaviorism, they tended to focus on problematic behaviors, Maslow was much more interested in learning about what makes people happy and the things that they do to achieve that aim. As a humanist, Maslow believed that people have an inborn desire to be self-actualized, that is, to be as they can be. In order to achieve these ultimate goals, however, a number of more basic needs must be met, such as the need for food, safety, love, and self-esteem. So there are 5 different levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow's hierarchy is most often displayed as a pyramid. The lowest levels of the pyramid are made up of the most basic needs, while the most complex needs are at the top of the pyramid. Needs at the bottom of the pyramid are basic physical requirements such as food, water, sleep, and warmth. Once those lower level needs are met, people move on to the next level of needs, which are safety and security. Then, you further go upward in the pyramid, needs are becoming more increasingly psychological and social. Soon there are the needs for love, friendship, intimacy, and in the uppermost levels of the pyramid, you will find personal esteem and feelings of accomplishments. They take priority. So what has this got to do with the media text? So it is very relevant to advertisers and institutions that carry advertising, newspapers, cinema, television, and radio channels. Maslow's upper levels at the top of the pyramid are about self-esteem and gaining the respect of others. So this can be linked to the idea that consuming particular media texts fulfills self-esteem. Okay, and again, buying of certain products also fulfills the self-esteem of a particular person. So the hypodermic model, the media here is seen as powerful and able to inject ideas into the audience who are seen as weak and passive. The hypodermic needle was proposed by Harold Laswell in the 1920s. It was also known as the magic bullet theory. It explains how the audience is directly affected by what they view or what they hear. It is said that to affect the audience or viewer immediately or in the near future. So it suggests that a media text can inject or fire ideas or values or attitudes into a passive audience who might then act upon them. Okay? So this theory also suggests that a media text has only one message which the audience must pick up. The theory suggests that the audience is powerless towards resisting the impact of the message, which in some cases could be dangerous. So this appeared to be the case in Nazi Germany in the 1930s, leading up to the Second World War. Powerful German films such as Triumph of the Will seemed to use propaganda methods to inject ideas, promoting Nazi cause into the German audience. In 1957, an American theorist, Wayne Packard, who was working in advertising, he wrote an influential book called The Hidden Persuaders. So this particular book, it suggested that advertisers were able to manipulate audiences and persuade them to buy things they may not want to buy. So this suggested that advertisers had power over audiences. In fact, this has since proved to be an unreliable model as modern audiences are too sophisticated and are too aware. So this theory stems from a fear of the mass media, and it gives the media much more power than it can ever have in a democracy. Also, it ignores the obvious fact that not everyone in an audience behaves in the same way. So the cultivation theory examines the long-term effects of television. The primary proposition of cultivation theory states that more time people spend living in the television world, living, the more likely they are to believe the social reality that aligns with reality portrayed on television. So cultivation theory was a theory composed originally by George Gerbner, and later it was expanded by Gerbner and Gross. The Violence Profile journal, it was published. So they began research in the mid 1960s. They endeavoring to study media effects, specifically whether watching television can influence the audience's idea and perception of everyday life, or if so, how. So cultivation theory states that high-frequency viewers of television are more susceptible to media messages and the belief that they are real and valid. So heavy viewers are exposed to more violence and therefore are affected by the mean world syndrome. Okay, the belief that the world is a far worse and dangerous place than it actually is. So this theory also treats the audience as passive. It suggests that repeated exposure to the same message, such as an advertisement, will have an effect on the audience's attitudes and values. So a similar idea is known as desensitization, which suggests that long-term exposure to violent media makes the audience less likely to be shocked by violence. Being less shocked by violence, the audience may then be more likely to behave violently. So the criticism of this theory that screen violence is not the same as real violence. Many people have been exposed to screen murder and violence, but there is no evidence at all that this has led audiences to be less shocked by real killings and violence. Also, this theory treats the audience as passive, which is again considered as an outdated concept. Now, Paul Lazarsfeld, Bernard Berelson, and Hazel Goddard, they analyzed the voters' decision-making processes during a 1940 presidential election campaign, and they published their results in a paper called The People's Choice. So their findings suggested that the information does not flow directly from the text into the minds of the audience, unmediated, but it is filtered through opinion leaders who then communicate it to the less active associates. So Katz and Lazarsfeld assumes a slightly more active audience. It suggests messages from the media move in two distinct ways. First, individuals who are opinion leaders. They receive the messages from the media and pass on to their own interpretations. In addition to the actual media content, they pass on to their, passive audiences. So the audience then mediate the information received directly from the media with the ideas and thoughts expressed by the opinion leaders. So they are being influenced by a direct process, but by a two-step flow. Okay, so this theory appeared to reduce the power of the media, and some researchers concluded that social factors were also important in the way in which audiences interpret texts. So this led to the idea of an active audience. So the uses and gratification model, it stems from the idea that audiences are a complex mixture of individuals who select media texts that best suits their needs. Okay, so this goes back to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs that we have discussed above. So the uses and gratifications model suggests that media audiences are active and they make active decisions about what they consume in relation to their social and cultural setting and their needs. This means that audiences choose to watch programs that makes them feel good, that gratifies their needs of feeling good. Okay, for example, dramas, sitcoms, etc., or that give them information that they can use. Okay, uses. For example, news and information about a new product, about the world around them, etc. So reception analysis is an active audience theory that looks at how audiences interact with the media text, taking into account their situated culture. Okay, this is their daily life. So this theory was put forward by Professor Stuart Hall in the Television Discourse Encoding Decoding in 1974. So reception theory asserts that media texts are encoded and decoded. The producer encodes messages and values into their media, which are then decoded by the audience. However, different audience members will decode the media in different ways and possibly not in the way that producer originally intended. So Stuart Hall states that audience members adopt one of the three positions when they decode the text. First is the dominant or preferred reading, how the producer wants the audience to view the media text. Next is oppositional reading, when the audience rejects the preferred reading and creates their own meaning for the text. Then negotiated reading, a compromise between the dominant and oppositional readings where the audience accepts parts of the audience producer's views but also has their own views on parts as well. So many factors could affect whether the audience take the dominant, oppositional or negotiated reading. For example, age, beliefs, culture, gender, life experiences, mood, their moods at the time of viewing that particular media text. So this theory suggests that social and daily experiences can affect the way an audience reads a media text and reacts to it. So when we talk about interactive audiences, we have to talk about the internet. The internet has opened up new ways to receive and interact with information. We can read texts that are downloaded to our computers or mobiles, or watch TV on demand, and not just when the broadcaster wants us to receive it, but we can demand a particular show and watch it at our own time. As all of us we know, we can access music or film wherever we are with an internet connection. So we have access to media 24/7. So a prosumer is a person who consumes and produces media. Okay, this is another term that has been developed. It has been derived from presumption. So a .com era business term meaning production by consumers. So these terms are coined by American futurist Alvin Toffler, and these are widely used by many technology writers of the time. It applies to the fact that we can create our own media and contribute, generating our own audiences. So the real power of the audience seems to lie in being able to take part in the media text. So 21st century audiences are creating their own distribution system without mediation from institutions or companies. So the websites such as YouTube, Instagram and blogs, different blogs, they offer new possibilities to the audiences to produce and distribute content. So it is what we do and what we spend our money on that gives an audience its value and to some extent its power. Things that influence audience include new technologies. So new technologies in turn influence audiences and institutions. So it is what we do and what we spend our money on that gives an audience its value and to some extent its power. So things that influence audiences include new technologies, okay, and new technologies in turn influence audiences and institutions. So this is what we learned about media audiences today with the help of some of the audience theories. And I hope your conception idea regarding media audiences has been cleared to some extent, and it will help us later in understanding the influence or the role of media in gender studies. Thank you, and we'll see you in the next video lecture.